Did you know that long before Norman Bates checked anyone into Room 1, filmmakers were already turning murder investigations into midnight seances on screen? Between 1953 and 1959, at least 15 little-known features fused whodunit clues with raw dread, quietly teaching audiences to fear the everyday. Tonight we'll slip through those half-forgotten corridors and meet the cryptic horror-mystery hybrids that carved the path for Psycho. Smash that like, subscribe, and keep your eyes on every shadow. Our tour of hidden nightmares starts now. Les Diaboliques, 1955. Long before Norman Bates's knife carved terror into bathroom tiles, Henri-Georges Clouzot let dread seep through a rundown French boarding school like water through cracked plaster. Christina, the headmaster's heart-stricken wife, joins forces with his brow-beaten mistress to drown the brute in a mildewed bathtub. When the bloated corpse vanishes and chalk-white pupils glimpse the man's suit in class photos, polite whodunit rules collapse into raw nightmare. Lights flicker, door handles twitch, and unseen feet pad across waxed floors, daring viewers to believe terror can be handmade. Clouzot bought the novel's rights hours before Alfred Hitchcock called the author, and his jealous gamble paid off. French cinemas issued heart attack warnings after fainting patrons and one miscarriage lawsuit. What made the film unique wasn't a ghost or monster, but the terrible idea that fear itself could be engineered. The final empty hallway, a squeaking cart rolling by itself, lingers like stale perfume, showing later directors, Hitchcock included, exactly how deep a mind game could slice. Critics now trace modern psychological horror to this very bathtub, arguing that its slow-boil tension taught audiences to fear what they could almost hear. A heartbeat in the plumbing, a breath behind frosted glass. The Night of the Hunter, 1955. Charles Laughton's one-off Miracle plays like a poisoned lullaby drifting over the Depression-era South. Robert Mitchum's Reverend Harry Powell, hands tattooed with love and hate, stalks two orphans for hidden loot their father left stuffed inside a rag doll. Fairy tale dread blooms, a crooked silhouette slides across barn walls, hymns turn into hunting calls, and an underwater corpse sways like river grass. Expressionist angles stretch lampposts into gallows, while Powell's baritone hymn drifts through reed beds. Mitchum ad-libbed much of the scripture-quoting menace, terrifying the child actors so badly that caretakers demanded breaks. Though the film flopped and vanished from theaters within weeks, whispered praise kept it alive until critics in the 1970s hailed it as a lost masterpiece. Blood is never shown. Terror rises from suggestion, the silence of a farmhouse night or a slow zoom on knuckles tightening around a switchblade. Years before Psycho, Laughton gave cinema its first charming, Bible-quoting sociopath and warned small-town America that wolves can wear shepherd's clothing. Those love-hate knuckle tattoos still march through pop culture, a sermon that never ends. The Bad Seed, 1956. Mervyn LeRoy shattered the perfect child illusion by asking a forbidden question. Can evil be inherited like blue eyes? 8-year-old Rhoda Penmark, starched pinafore and angelic smile, calmly eliminates anyone blocking her prize collection, starting with a classmate found face down beneath a pier. Mother Christine uncovers bloody shoes in the toy box and a darker revelation. She herself descends from a notorious female serial killer. The detective's torch becomes maternal love as Christine races to prove nature has overpowered nurture. Production code censors forced a lightning strike ending to punish Rhoda, then the cast cheekily added a curtain call spanking to lighten nerves. Even so, preview audiences filed out in stunned silence, disturbed by the film's cold talk of psychopathy. No shadows or cobwebs hide the horror, bright living room lamps expose every lie. Psychologists balked, yet the story forecast debates that still rage around true crime docs. Patty McCormack's unblinking stare, achieved through marathon long takes, made grown co-stars forget lines. By planting menace in a sunny upstairs bedroom, The Bad Seed laid groundwork for every domestic shocker, from Halloween to Kevin. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. Don Siegel wraps sci-fi skin around a murder mystery fueled by identity terror. Dr. Miles Bennell returns to Santa Mira and hears patients whisper that loved ones are replicas with no emotion. The clue trail, seed pods in a greenhouse, odd pauses in everyday speech, sharpens the question. Who is real, and can memories be trusted? Studio suits tacked on a hopeful frame story, but Seagull sprinkled red herrings like a detective novel. A policeman sipping water too mechanically, a phone operator pausing one heartbeat too long. Garbage trucks haul pods at dawn, morgue lights flicker over half-formed faces, and children supervise their parents' replacements. Cold War allegory aside, Seagull focused on the nightmare that someone you kiss might be flawless counterfeit. Hitchcock later borrowed that everyman dread for Psycho, and filmmakers from Carpenter to Fincher trace unreliable reality back to Santa Mira's foggy streets. The last street shot still jolts viewers into eyeing loved ones sideways, wondering whether the hand reaching out wants comfort or to sprout roots. Curse of the Demon, 1957. Jacques Tourneur blends ancient runes, modern skepticism, and procedural sleuthing. Psychologist John Holden visits England to debunk a devil-worship cult led by courteous Julian Carswell. A colleague dies shredded by electrical claw marks, and Holden races library microfilms, British museum scrolls, and midnight estate raids to decide whether the parchment curse ticking toward his death is myth or monster. Producer Hal Chester forced a literal demon puppet on screen, but Tourneur masked it in smoke, undercranking the camera until movement felt wrong. Critics later said the fleeting reveal shows horror's negative space, gone before certainty can settle. Carswell serenades kittens at children's parties, proving kindness can veneer colossal evil. Lecturers still screen the film for its precise medieval sigils, while that parchment flutters through train platform shadows like a murderous moth. The finale on a roaring railway bridge, sparks flying as claws embrace prey, cements the idea that doubters sometimes get the proof they dread most. Vertigo, 1958. Often shelved as a thriller, Hitchcock's dream-drunk puzzle is really a ghost story hiding in plain light. Retired detective Scotty Ferguson tails the haunted Madeline through fog-cloaked San Francisco, noting diary scraps, hotel registers, and the grave of Carlotta Valdez. Just when the riddle seems supernatural, Hitchcock reveals murder by identity theft, and then makes Scotty an accomplice, sculpting Judy into a resurrected doll. The new dolly zoom lens turns acrophobia into visual panic. Its spiraling hair-bun motif still fuels film school debates. Censors trimmed a bath scene, so Hitchcock slipped subliminal tower images earlier to keep nerves raw. Critics scorned the necrophilic obsession in 1958. Today, the film tops greatest ever polls, a prelude to Bates family madness. Bernard Herrmann's score pulses just off beat, warning no heartbeat here can be trusted. In the final bells, Hitchcock shows no knife, just Scotty staring into an unfathomable drop, asking whether he fell or was already lost. Fiend Without a Face, 1958. What starts as straight science fiction at a remote Canadian airbase morphs into a grisly whodunit. Locals die with snapped necks and liquefied brains, leaving only a sound like sucking mud. Major Jeff Cummings maps attack radii, times power surges, and finds latex shavings from footprints that aren't there. The invisible killers prove to be brainstem creatures spawned by a professor's nuclear-powered telepathy. A nightmare of thought made flesh. British censors nearly banned the gore-soaked stop-motion finale. Parliament debated artistic freedom before release. The climax assaults 1958 audiences with rubber cerebra crawling over control panels. But what truly horrifies is the idea that stray thoughts can slip the skull and murder while you sleep. Desert-quiet exteriors, forced by budget, let wind and distant jet engines sharpen dread, prefiguring slashers that weaponize silence. By marrying police procedure to metaphysics, the film warned that tomorrow's killer might not use claws at all, only the runaway imagination inside your own head. House on Haunted Hill, 1959. William Castle didn't just break the fourth wall, he invited audiences to crawl through it. Vincent Price's sardonic millionaire, Frederick Loren, lures 5 needy guests to a hilltop funeral manse, arming them with loaded pistols and one bubbling vat of acid recycled from an old cattle branding set. Castle booby-trapped real doors so grips could slam them mid-take, making even the actors flinch. His legendary Emergo gimmick sent a glow-in-the-dark skeleton soaring over seats. But projectionists also yanked chandeliers with piano wire and triggered hidden gusts of dry ice fog, turning the cinema into a crime scene you couldn't escape. Price rewrote lines into Gothic poetry, while a witch-like caretaker glided on secret rollers, giving practical effects students a masterclass in low-budget dread. Off-camera, Price hid a rubber hand in co-star Carolyn Craig's vanity case, capturing a genuine Scream castle proudly printed. By fusing carnival tricks, locked-room mystery, and razor-sharp dialogue, Castle proved that with cunning stagecraft and one gleefully grinning host, a 10-cent skeleton can outsell a $1 million monster. Eyes Without a Face, 1959. Georges Franju's hypnotic chiller unspools like an anesthetic nightmare. Guilt-racked surgeon Dr. Genessier prowls rain-soaked Paris in a silver Citroën, abducting women whose cheekbones might fit his daughter Christiane, the victim of his own crash. In their shuttered villa, Christiane drifts through Baroque corridors, wearing an ivory mask lit with candle reflections, so faint audiences glimpse their own faces in its sheen. The notorious surgery scene, filmed in a real operating theater, made Cannes jurors stagger to the lobby. Yet Franju insists the true horror is ethical. The quiet hum of fluorescent lights as humanity peels away. Inspector Poirot's pinboard manhunt, coded phone calls, and a covert bait victim supply hard-boiled tension beneath the gore. Maurice Jarre scores Christiane's glide with a broken calliope waltz, inventing the horror lullaby decades before Elm Street. The film tanked in France but roared at Edinburgh, where Psycho fans called it Hitchcock minus mercy. Carpenter borrowed its mask for Michael Myers. Korean surgeons screen it during ethics lectures. When Christiane finally frees kennel dogs and vanishes into moonlit woods, viewers leave the theater checking exit doors, half expecting that smooth white mask to float beside them. The Tingler, 1959. William Castle's The Tingler turned cinema into Conspirator. Vincent Price's Dr. Warren Chapman discovers a centipede-like parasite that lives at the spine's base and snaps vertebrae unless the host screams. Castle filmed in a disused UCLA morgue, so refrigeration vapors wreathed rubber props, then painted the creature neon to throb under blacklights. Experiments unfold like warped police interrogations, acid trips, decibel charts, and a staged burglary that nearly kills an intern. Castle's infamous Percepto rig wired surplus bomber vibrators under 400 random seats. Opening night logs recorded 14 faintings and 1 bitten shoulder. A burst of hand-tinted vermilion blood swirling from a black-and-white sink foreshadowed Hitchcock's chocolate syrup shower. The final reel traps the Tingler in the projector gate as Price pleads, "Scream! Scream for your lives!" inventing meta-horror decades before Scream. Revival screenings still hire medics, not for the gimmick, but for the nostalgia that proves Castle's dime store shocks, pierced in artery multiplex, decibels can't touch. The Hound of the Baskervilles, 1959. Hammer's Technicolor take on Conan Doyle drenches Dartmoor in cobalt fog and arterial red. Peter Cushing's Holmes, all razor wit and spectral calm, deduces paw print depth from a single dewdrop while flicking ash onto microscope slides. Director Terence Fisher rebuilt the moor on Bray Studios' backlot, chilling glycerin fog to hang like wet velvet. For the glowing Hound, a Great Dane was coated in radioactive paint. Handlers wore lead aprons, and the beast twice escaped at dawn, sparking headlines of a phosphorescent phantom along the Thames. Fisher added seance and tarantula set pieces, scattering clues, melted wax on portraits, manacled convict tracks, to steer the tale toward horror. Composer James Bernard scored the moor, with timpani struck by wet leather, making the land itself seem to breathe. British censors trimmed a throat-mauling shot. U.S. prints lost 10 seconds, but gained 10 nightmares. Offset, prankster Cushing stamped oversized paw prints in producer Anthony Hines's garden, triggering a security lockdown. The film's emerald and crimson lens filters fathered giallo palettes, and forensic courses still laud its evidence chains. Those spectral paw prints remain a masterclass. Reveal just enough monster to make detective work feel life or death, then let imagination finish the autopsy. The Quartermass Experiment, 1955. Before Alien burst chests, Hammer's Quartermass Experiment showed the scariest crime scene can cover a nation. A V-2-inspired rocket crashes. Only Victor Carroon survives, his skin fused to the capsule's wall. Professor Quartermass and Superintendent Lomax form Britain's oddest task force, seizing Geigers and soil cores. Carroon's wife, under MI5 watch, smuggles him out, sparking a manhunt through bombed churches and canal fog. Diary fragments, pulse charts, and CCTV stills track his metamorphosis. Veins glowing with Phil Leakey's phosphor paint, fingerprints dissolving. Screenwriter Richard Landau mined real Lancet studies on radiation burns, convincing viewers they'd seen classified truth. Quartermass's climactic plea, recorded inside Westminster Abbey at 3 a.m., sounded so authentic, locals phoned police about foreign propaganda. The X in the title flagged Britain's new adults-only rating. Teens flocked for outlaw thrills. NASA later cited the film while drafting Apollo quarantine rules. Today, epidemiologists teach its viral metaphor. Sometimes containment fails because the organism wearing your clothes isn't you. Its final echo of hollow church bells still asks whether solving the mystery merely reveals our own species' fragility. The Man Who Could Cheat Death, 1959. Hammer unwraps immortality like a medical report dripping wax. Paris, 1890. Surgeon Georges Bonnet, secretly 104, needs a parathyroid gland transplant every decade or turns to stone. His aged colleague dies. Bonnet hosts salon soirees where marble nudes double as prospective donors. Jimmy Sangster's script reads like a dossier. Missing person notices beside anatomy plates. A bust dated 1815 bearing Bonnet's modern face. Coal orders that trace clandestine furnace burns. Roy Ashton baked gelatin onto Anton Diffring's cheeks under 110-degree Klieg's. The blisters on film are real. Paramount cut arterial spray, so Director Fisher ramped tension with ticking carriage clocks and tight close-ups of unwrinkled hands trembling over scalpels. Barbara Shelley, rare proactive heroine, blackmails Bonnet with X-rays showing graft lines glowing like prison bars. Modern bioethicists cite the film during organ trafficking debates. Cronenberg calls it surgical Gothic seed. The flaming phosphorus finale scorched Bray's floorboards for years, a ghostly studio stain whispering that ageless faces often cost someone else's life. The Maze, 1953. Production design legend William Cameron Menzies delivered a 3D Gothic puzzle that stitches romance, sleuthing, and body horror. When Kitty Murray tracks her fiancé Gerald to his ancestral Scottish castle, she and two plucky friends chart echoing corridors, mark maze turns, and note servants accepting daily deliveries of pond flies. Menzies' twin camera rig birthed depth-charged frames, spiral stairs looming like traps, torchlight licking the audience's elbows, and its weight-cracked parquet floors, sounds he recorded for the climax. Clues pile up. Gerald's shredded walking stick hidden in a sundial, diary pages listing amphibious diets, a waterlogged birth certificate dated 1702. Costume seams shimmer slime green, hinting at Gerald's gradual metamorphosis. The final reveal, a 6-foot amphibian baron with glassy glycerin eyes, was mocked then, but Bradbury later praised its tragic sorrow. Restorationists now resurrect lost polarized prints, claiming Menzies predicted VR immersion. Peel away the rubber suit, and the maze cautions. Solve the riddle, and you may unearth a truth too biologically strange and heartbreakingly human to forget. Dementia, 1955. Made on Skid Row streets for the price of a family sedan, John Parker's Dementia, later Daughter of Horror, plays like a silent confession scrawled in lipstick. A nameless woman jolts awake in a flea-bag hotel, gripping a switchblade and a fractured heart pendant. She prowls neon alleys past jazz dives and pawn shops, facing a pimp, pickpocket, and leering millionaire who may be assailants or flashbacks. Parker hired genuine night owls. The gentleman was a bankrupt oil heir, paid in whiskey, injecting danger no extra could fake. Surplus Navy infrared film turned skin moon white and street lamps into radioactive blossoms. Composer George Antheil mixed heartbeat drums with reversed train whistles, so city noise morphs into panic. Breadcrumbs accumulate, a pawn ticket for a baby rattle, clippings on a child's drowning, chalk outlines mirroring wrist scars. A real LAPD cruiser tried to arrest Parker for filming without permits. He kept the footage, folding reality into paranoia. Ed McMahon's doom-laden narration added later riffs on Freudian case files. Scholars argue it foreshadows PTSD diagnostics. The woman's blade plunges, reality rewinds, and she wakes again. Murder unproved, trauma unresolved. Lynch screened it weekly during Eraserhead, citing its capacity to make urban decay feel like exposed nerves. Trauma therapists even use clips to illustrate intrusive flashbacks. Dementia ends by reawakening, its flick-knife heartbeat echoing as lights come up, leaving the audience both detective and unreliable witness, with no verdict offered.